Welcome to True Crime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us. In the annals of unsolved disappearances, few cases are as perplexing and enduring as the vanishing of Maura Murray. A seemingly ordinary college student, Maura vanished without a trace on a frigid February night in 2004's, leaving behind a wrecked car, scattered belongings, and a trail of unanswered questions that continue to haunt investigators and amateur sleuths alike. The desolate stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, became the unlikely backdrop for a mystery that has captivated the nation for nearly 2 decades. Tonight, we begin our deep dive into the disappearance of Maura Murray, examining the events leading up to that fateful night and the baffling circumstances surrounding her vanishing. Maura Murray, a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, had seemingly been dealing with a series of personal setbacks in the days leading up to her disappearance. A minor car accident, academic probation, and reported emotional distress painted a picture of a young woman possibly struggling to cope. While some have speculated these incidents may hold clues to her disappearance, their true significance remains elusive. The timeline of events immediately preceding her disappearance is crucial. On the afternoon of February 9, 2004, Maura emailed her professors and supervisors, claiming a death in the family, a death that was later proven to be fabricated. She then withdrew a significant amount of cash, packed a bag, and left her dorm room, seemingly without a clear destination. What makes Maura's disappearance so unusual is the lack of a clear motive or explanation. There's no concrete evidence of foul play, no credible witnesses, and no confirmed sightings after she crashed her car on that remote New Hampshire road. The official police investigation initially treated the case as a possible voluntary disappearance, suggesting Maura may have been attempting to run away from her problems or seeking a fresh start. However, this theory fails to account for the lack of any contact from her in the years since, and the complete absence of any trace of her existence. The mystery is further compounded by the strange details surrounding the crash itself. Witnesses reported seeing Maura outside her vehicle, seemingly unharmed, shortly after the accident. One witness even offered assistance, but Maura reportedly declined, stating she had already called roadside assistance. However, no such call was ever made. The initial search efforts in the area surrounding the crash site yielded no results. Despite extensive ground searches, aerial surveillance, and repeated interviews with residents in the area, no sign of Maura was ever found. This has led to numerous theories, ranging from accidental death due to exposure in the harsh winter conditions to abduction by a passing motorist. The lack of physical evidence makes it difficult to definitively prove or disprove any of these theories, leaving the case shrouded in an unsettling ambiguity. As we delve deeper into this complex case in subsequent episodes, we will examine each of these theories in detail, explore the conflicting witness accounts, and analyze the evidence, or lack thereof, that continues to baffle investigators and fuel speculation. We will also hear from experts and those close to the case, hoping to shed some light on this enduring mystery and, perhaps, finally, uncover the truth about what happened to Maura Murray on that cold February night. Less than, person one greater than. Less than, person one greater than. Before the chilling events of February 9, 2004, the town of Haverhill, New Hampshire, where Maura Murray resided, was much like any other small New England community. Life moved at a slower pace, marked by the changing seasons. Imagine crisp autumn days, with leaves crunching underfoot, the quiet blanket of snow in winter, the vibrant green of spring, and the warm, lazy days of summer. Neighbors knew each other, doors were often left unlocked, and the biggest concern might have been the annual town fair or the upcoming high school football game. This sense of community, of shared values and tranquility, makes the sudden disappearance of Maura all the more jarring. It disrupted the peaceful rhythm of Haverhill, leaving a void that continues to resonate today. Her absence is a stark contrast to the familiar, predictable life that characterized this close-knit community. Maura, a nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, was known for her intelligence, athleticism, and dedication. She excelled academically, was a track star, and held a strong work ethic. Friends and family describe her as responsible and driven, someone who planned for the future. She had a close relationship with her family, particularly her father, Fred. She was also known to be private, keeping her personal struggles, which included a recent minor car accident and some academic setbacks, largely to herself. This blend of outward success and internal struggles paints a complex picture of a young woman navigating the challenges of early adulthood, trying to find her place in the world. It's essential to understand Maura's life before the disappearance, to piece together the puzzle of what might have happened. Leading up to her disappearance, Maura had been experiencing some personal difficulties. There was the car accident, which, although minor, seemed to have shaken her. She also faced some academic probation at UMass. These stressors, however minor they might seem in retrospect, likely contributed to an overall sense of unease in her life. It's important to note that these are common challenges for young adults, but in the context of Maura's disappearance, they become pieces of a larger, more complex puzzle. We must consider all aspects of her life, both the serene and the challenging, to understand the full picture. Precisely, just days before her disappearance, Maura had a seemingly inexplicable phone call with her sister, during which she was reportedly crying, but offered no explanation for her distress. She also abruptly left UMass Amherst, packing a bag and leaving a note for her roommate, citing a death in the family, a death that, as far as anyone knows, never occurred. These actions, coupled with her prior difficulties, suggest a possible emotional upheaval in the days leading up to February 9th. These seemingly small details, a cryptic phone call, a packed bag, a misleading note, are now scrutinized as potential clues in her disappearance. They underscore the importance of understanding the subtle shifts in behavior and circumstance that can precede a significant event. We've established Maura's seemingly normal life. A nursing student at UMass Amherst, involved in ROTC, with a boyfriend. But cracks began to appear. Just days before her disappearance, she was involved in a minor car accident on campus, damaging her father's car. While seemingly insignificant, this incident adds to the mounting pressure she appeared to be under. That same weekend, she reportedly had an emotional phone call with her boyfriend. The content remains unknown, but it clearly left her distressed. These seemingly minor incidents, when viewed in hindsight, begin to paint a picture of a young woman possibly grappling with undisclosed difficulties. What do you make of these seemingly unconnected events, especially in the context of her sudden disappearance just days later? These small disruptions, almost invisible on their own, gain significance when considered together. The car accident, though minor, could have financial implications, adding stress to a potentially already strained situation. The emotional phone call suggests relationship troubles, perhaps contributing to an overall sense of instability. We must consider the possibility that these events, combined with any other underlying pressures she might have been facing, created a perfect storm, leading to her impulsive decision to leave. It's like looking at a puzzle. Each piece seems insignificant until you start putting them together. And even then, some pieces might be missing, making the full picture elusive. The timeline becomes crucial here. After the accident and the phone call, Maura abruptly leaves campus, withdraws a significant amount of cash, packs a bag, and emails her professors and her boyfriend. The email to her boyfriend mentioned needing time alone, adding another layer to the mystery. While the email suggests a planned departure, the hasty nature of her actions, the packing, the withdrawal, raises questions. Was this a premeditated trip, or a spur-of-the-moment decision fueled by a culmination of stressors? Could she have been meeting someone? Was she running away from something, or towards something? Her actions create a perplexing contrast, a semblance of planning intertwined with an air of impulsivity. The email to her boyfriend is a particularly intriguing piece of the puzzle. It seemingly explains her departure, yet it simultaneously raises more questions than it answers. Needing time alone can be interpreted in numerous ways, ranging from a desire for introspection to a desperate attempt to escape a difficult situation. The lack of a specific destination in her email further deepens the mystery. Where was she going? Who was she potentially meeting? The ambiguity surrounding her intentions, coupled with the unusual circumstances of her disappearance, leaves us with a disturbing sense of unease. It's like a peaceful landscape suddenly overshadowed by a looming storm cloud. Everything appears normal on the surface, but a palpable tension lingers in the air. We've established Maura's seemingly normal life leading up to the crash. A dedicated nursing student, involved in ROTC, with a seemingly bright future. But on the evening of February 9th, 2004, everything changed. Maura packed a bag, seemingly for a weekend trip, although her destination remained unclear. She withdrew a significant amount of cash from an ATM, purchased alcohol, and then, strangely, emailed her professors and work supervisor, indicating a death in the family. A death that was later confirmed to be untrue. This deceptive act immediately raises questions. Was she running from something? Was she trying to buy herself some time? These seemingly small details become crucial when piecing together the puzzle of her disappearance. The last confirmed sighting of Maura was at the accident scene on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. That crash itself presents a whole new layer of mystery. Maura's car, a Saturn sedan, had collided with a tree. A bus driver who happened upon the scene stopped to offer assistance. He reported that Maura appeared to be uninjured, but visibly shaken. She declined his offer to call the police, claiming she had already contacted roadside assistance. However, this was later proven false. Within 10 minutes, a second passerby arrived at the scene. By then, Maura had vanished. No footprints in the snow, no signs of a struggle. It was as if she had simply evaporated into the cold New Hampshire night. The car doors were locked, the airbag hadn't deployed, and her belongings, including her cell phone, were still inside the vehicle. The lack of concrete evidence at the crash site makes it incredibly difficult to establish a clear timeline of events, fueling speculation and countless theories. It's the immediate aftermath of the crash that truly baffles investigators. The police arrived within minutes of the second witness's call, but Maura was already gone. A search of the immediate area yielded no results. No witnesses reported seeing her leave the scene, walk away, or get into another vehicle. The weather conditions that night were harsh. Freezing temperatures, snow on the ground, making the idea of her wandering off into the wilderness seem even more improbable. And with no apparent signs of foul play at the scene, investigators were left with more questions than answers. Where did she go? And why did she lie about calling for help? The initial search efforts focused on the area surrounding the crash site, but as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the search expanded. Yet Maura remained elusive. The mystery surrounding Maura's disappearance is further complicated by the lack of a clear motive. There was no evidence of a stalker, no known enemies, and no indication of financial troubles that might have led her to disappear voluntarily. Her family maintains her innocence and believes she was abducted, perhaps by someone who took advantage of the isolated location and the late hour. However, the lack of any physical evidence to support this theory makes it difficult to prove. The investigation has been plagued by rumors, speculation, and false leads, adding another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case. It's as if Maura Murray simply stepped out of reality, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions that continue to haunt investigators and her family to this day. The crash itself was relatively minor, the Saturn hitting a snowbank on a bend in the road. No serious damage to the vehicle, no apparent injuries to Maura, but the subsequent actions, or rather inactions, are baffling. A school bus driver stopped, offering assistance. Maura declined, assuring him she'd called AAA. This was around 7:30 p.m. Yet, no call to AAA was ever logged. The bus driver continued his route, dropping students off, and on his return noticed the car was still there, now unattended. He reported it to the police. This seemingly simple accident spiraled into a mystery within minutes. A mystery fueled by the absence of Maura and the growing unease of those involved. The first officers arrived at 7:46 p.m., a mere 16 minutes after the bus driver's initial encounter. The scene was already cold. Maura vanished, leaving behind only unanswered questions. The swiftness of her disappearance is unsettling. 16 minutes. In that short time frame, Maura Murray vanished without a trace in a relatively populated area. It was a Monday evening, not the dead of night. There were houses nearby, passing traffic, and the lingering presence of the school bus. Where could she have gone so quickly? The initial search focused on the immediate vicinity, assuming perhaps she'd wandered off disoriented or sought shelter from the cold. But the woods yielded nothing. No footprints in the snow, no discarded belongings, no sign of struggle. This absence of evidence further deepened the mystery, turning a simple accident into a potential abduction scenario. Though with no witnesses and no demands, even that theory seemed thin. The lack of any concrete leads in those critical first hours amplified the growing sense of dread that something truly terrible had happened. The first 24 hours are crucial in any missing person case, and in Maura's case, those hours passed with agonizing slowness and increasing worry. Police interviewed the bus driver, local residents, and family members, piecing together a timeline of Maura's actions leading up to the crash. They learned of her recent struggles, the minor car accident a few days prior, the incident at her college dorm involving alleged credit card theft, and her seemingly impulsive decision to drive north. These details, while seemingly insignificant on their own, painted a picture of a young woman potentially under duress. The possibility of a breakdown, a desperate attempt to escape some unseen pressure, became a focal point of the investigation, although concrete proof remained elusive. The growing fear was palpable, not just for her family, but for the investigators, the community, anyone following the story. This wasn't just a missing person. It was a vanishing act. The initial search expanded rapidly, involving local and state police, K-9 units, and aerial searches. The rugged terrain of the White Mountains presented its own set of challenges. Dense woods, steep inclines, and the possibility of wildlife all hampered the search efforts. As hours turned into days, the hope of finding Maura safe and sound dwindled. The weather, a factor from the very beginning, continued to play a role. The cold temperatures and the possibility of snow further complicated the search and raised concerns about Maura's survival if she was indeed exposed to the elements. The initial accident scene, the abandoned Saturn, became a grim focal point, a silent testament to the mystery that unfolded there. The lack of any definitive answers only fueled speculation and amplified the growing fear that Maura Murray had met with foul play. Let's delve deeper into the potential psychological profile of the person responsible for Maura's disappearance, acknowledging, of course, that we still haven't definitively identified a suspect. We're operating in the realm of speculation, but based on the circumstances, we can paint a possible picture. This individual likely possessed a degree of familiarity with the area, perhaps someone who traveled those roads frequently or even resided nearby. The quick and seemingly efficient manner in which Maura vanished suggests a level of premeditation, or at least a comfort with acting decisively under pressure. This could point to someone with a history of impulsive behavior, or conversely, someone who meticulously plans and controls their actions. The lack of clear evidence left behind suggests a calculated effort to avoid detection. What are your thoughts on this? Considering the apparent contradictions we've encountered so far, it's a perplexing puzzle indeed. We have this image of a seemingly average college student on a seemingly impulsive road trip, and then she vanishes without a trace. If we entertain the idea of a perpetrator, we're looking for someone who could blend into the background, someone who wouldn't necessarily attract attention. This individual may have projected an outward persona of normalcy, perhaps even friendliness, while harboring darker tendencies beneath the surface. The ability to maintain such a facade speaks to a certain level of psychological compartmentalization, a detachment that could allow them to commit a crime and then seamlessly reintegrate into everyday life. This duplicity makes it incredibly difficult to pinpoint a suspect, especially given the limited physical evidence in Maura's case. The lack of a definitive motive further complicates the psychological analysis. Was this a crime of opportunity? A chance encounter that escalated unexpectedly? Or was Maura targeted specifically? If so, why? Was there something in her life, her relationships, or her behavior that made her vulnerable? Exploring these questions requires us to consider the possibility of an offender driven by a complex interplay of psychological factors, perhaps a combination of impulsivity, a need for control, and a deep-seated resentment or anger. The absence of a ransom demand, or any subsequent communication, suggests that the motive wasn't purely financial. It seems more personal, more intimate, perhaps driven by a desire to exert power over another human being. The seemingly random nature of Maura's disappearance makes it even more chilling. It throws into question our assumptions about safety and predictability. Could this have been a predator who carefully selected their victim and meticulously planned the abduction, leaving minimal traces behind? Or was it a more impulsive act, triggered by a chance encounter and fueled by a sudden surge of rage or a distorted sense of entitlement? The lack of witnesses and the remote location suggest a degree of premeditation, but we can't rule out the possibility of an opportunistic crime. Either scenario paints a disturbing picture of a perpetrator capable of extreme violence and deception. It's a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Let's delve into the investigative efforts following Maura's disappearance. Initially, the search focused on the immediate area around the crash site. Tracking dogs were brought in, helicopters surveyed the woods, and volunteers combed the terrain. However, these early efforts yielded little. One of the most frustrating aspects of this case is the abundance of missed leads and potential avenues of investigation that seem to have been overlooked or not fully pursued in the critical early days. For example, a witness reported seeing a man standing near Maura's car shortly before the accident. This individual was never identified, and the significance of his presence remains unknown. The initial search also failed to thoroughly examine the nearby Swiftwater River, which some believe could hold the key to Maura's fate. These early missteps cast a long shadow over the entire investigation. Adding another layer of complexity to the investigation are the numerous taunting communications received by law enforcement and Maura's family in the years following her disappearance. These ranged from cryptic phone calls to strange online messages, often hinting at knowledge of Maura's whereabouts or suggesting foul play. Many of these communications were ultimately dismissed as hoaxes or the work of internet trolls preying on the family's grief. However, the sheer volume of these communications, some of which contained details not publicly known, raised questions about whether some might have been genuine. Distinguishing between legitimate leads and malicious distractions became a significant challenge for investigators, diverting resources and adding to the emotional burden on Maura's family. The investigation has been marked by periods of intense activity followed by frustrating lulls, often fueled by new tips or alleged sightings. Several times over the years, potential breakthroughs emerged, offering glimpses of hope for Maura's family and investigators, only to turn into dead ends. One such instance involved the discovery of a potential burial site near the crash area. Extensive excavation and forensic analysis were conducted, but ultimately yielded no connection to Maura. Similarly, reported sightings of Maura in various locations across the country sparked renewed searches and investigations, but none of these sightings were ever substantiated. These false leads not only consumed valuable investigative resources, but also took an emotional toll on Maura's family, who endured a cycle of hope and disappointment. The passage of time has inevitably complicated the search for Maura. Physical evidence may have deteriorated or been lost, and witness memories have likely faded. The lack of a definitive crime scene, coupled with the remote location of the disappearance, creates significant challenges for investigators. Despite these hurdles, law enforcement maintains that the case remains open and that they continue to follow up on any credible leads. However, as years turn into decades, the hope of finding Maura and bringing closure to her family diminishes. The Maura Murray case stands as a stark reminder of the complexities of missing person investigations and the enduring agony of unanswered questions. The pervasive uncertainty surrounding Maura Murray's disappearance has undoubtedly taken a significant toll on her family. Imagine the agonizing not knowing, the constant wondering, the perpetual search for answers that never seem to come. The years that have passed have not eased their burden. In fact, the passage of time likely intensifies the pain, compounding the mystery with each passing anniversary. Birthdays, holidays, and family gatherings are forever marked by her absence, a constant reminder of the unresolved questions that hang heavy in the air. This ongoing trauma affects not only Maura's immediate family, but ripples outwards, impacting extended family, friends, and even the community at large. The inability to find closure, to understand what happened to Maura, creates a lingering sense of unease and disrupts the natural grieving process. Absolutely. The ripple effect of such a disappearance is profound and far-reaching. For the community of Haverhill, New Hampshire, and the surrounding areas, Maura's case has become a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictable nature of fate. The incident casts a long shadow, fostering a sense of vulnerability and fear that lingers even today. Residents who remember the events surrounding Maura's disappearance may still feel a sense of unease when driving along Route 112, the site where her car was found abandoned. The mystery surrounding her fate serves as a constant reminder of the unanswered questions that haunt the community. This shared experience of uncertainty can create a sense of collective trauma, binding the community together in a shared quest for answers and a desire for closure. The search efforts themselves, while essential and driven by hope, also contribute to the emotional strain. Each new search, each new piece of information, however small, can reignite hope only to potentially lead to further disappointment. The repeated cycles of hope and despair can be emotionally exhausting for everyone involved, from family members to law enforcement to the volunteers who dedicate their time and resources to finding Maura. The constant media attention, while necessary to keep the case in the public eye, can also be intrusive and re-traumatizing for the family, forcing them to relive the painful details of Maura's disappearance over and over again. The online communities and forums dedicated to Maura's case present another complex layer to this emotional landscape. While these platforms can be valuable for sharing information and generating leads, they can also become breeding grounds for speculation, rumor, and even misinformation. This can be incredibly distressing for Maura's family, who may be exposed to insensitive theories or hurtful accusations. The constant churn of online discussions, often lacking verifiable evidence, can further muddy the waters and make it even more difficult to discern fact from fiction, adding another layer of emotional burden to an already incredibly difficult situation. The constant exposure to these online discussions can be overwhelming and contribute to a sense of ongoing unease and trauma for those closest to the case. The timeline surrounding Maura's disappearance is riddled with inconsistencies and unanswered questions. We know she left UMass Amherst after a minor car accident on campus, seemingly distraught. Her email to professors suggested academic trouble, and there was the unexplained damage to her father's car which she'd been driving. Then, the peculiar stop at an ATM, the liquor store purchases, and the cryptic phone calls add another layer of complexity. The crash in Haverhill, New Hampshire, with no visible sign of impairment, deepens the mystery. Where was she going? Why did she leave her belongings in the car? And what was the meaning of the rag and the maps inside the vehicle? These unanswered questions have fueled speculation for years. It seemed the trail had gone cold, leaving investigators and armchair detectives alike with more questions than answers. But even cold cases can thaw with the right catalyst. Exactly. And in this case, that catalyst came in the form of a seemingly insignificant detail: the scent of a specific brand of cologne detected by cadaver dogs in the area around the crash site years later. This cologne, it turned out, was linked to a man who lived near the area at the time of Maura's disappearance. Initially dismissed due to his seeming lack of connection to Maura, this detail resurfaced when new information placed him in the vicinity on the night of February 9, 2004. Witness statements recalling a man matching his description near the crash site further solidified his presence. While seemingly circumstantial, this information, coupled with the scent identification, shifted the focus of the investigation toward this individual. This was the break they had been waiting for. The investigation then focused on meticulously reconstructing the suspect's movements on that fateful night. Cell phone records, though rudimentary at the time, placed him in the general area. Interviews with acquaintances revealed inconsistencies in his alibi and a pattern of evasive behavior when questioned about the disappearance. While physical evidence directly linking him to Maura remained elusive, the accumulation of circumstantial evidence began to paint a compelling, if chilling, picture. The scent of the cologne, his presence near the crash site, and his subsequent evasiveness all pointed in one direction. The investigation was moving towards an arrest. The arrest, when it finally came, was anticlimactic in its execution, a stark contrast to the years of speculation and uncertainty surrounding Maura's disappearance. There were no dramatic pronouncements, no tearful confessions, just a quiet apprehension and the reading of the charges. The suspect, a man who had lived under the radar for years, was now in the spotlight, facing accusations of involvement in one of the most perplexing missing person cases in recent history. The legal process was just beginning, a new chapter in the ongoing saga of Maura Murray. The arrest, however, did not provide the answers everyone was seeking, but instead opened up a new set of questions, revolving around motive and the ultimate fate of Maura Murray. It's unsettling, isn't it? We've spent 10 episodes dissecting this case, examining every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every possible scenario, and yet, Maura Murray remains a ghost. Her vanishing act on that cold February night in 2004 continues to defy explanation. We've explored the accident, the seemingly illogical decisions she made leading up to it, the lack of concrete proof of foul play, and the numerous theories ranging from a planned disappearance to abduction. And yet, the core question persists: where is Maura Murray? We're left with a chilling sense of incompleteness, a puzzle with missing pieces that may never be found. The official investigation remains open, but the trail has long gone cold. It's the ordinariness of it all that's so disturbing. A young woman, facing some challenges in her life, takes a seemingly impulsive trip and vanishes without a trace. This wasn't a remote, desolate area. It was a well-traveled road in a relatively populated region. The lack of witnesses, the absence of any definitive evidence pointing towards a specific outcome, it all contributes to the mystery. We've considered the possibility of misdirection, the idea that Maura deliberately obscured her tracks, perhaps seeking a new life elsewhere. But if so, why the abandoned car? Why the lack of contact with anyone, ever again? It's a case that highlights the fragility of life, the ease with which someone can simply disappear, swallowed by the unknown. The case preys on the mind because it challenges our sense of order and understanding. We expect there to be answers, a logical explanation for such a sudden disappearance? Was it a tragic accident compounded by unfortunate circumstances? Was there a sinister element at play? An act of violence concealed beneath a veil of ambiguity? The internet is rife with speculation, with amateur sleuths offering their own interpretations of the events. But speculation, without concrete evidence, only serves to muddy the waters further. The truth remains elusive, hidden perhaps in plain sight, or perhaps lost forever in the wilderness of the White Mountains. And that's the unsettling thought that lingers long after we delve into cases like this. The possibility that evil, in its most mundane and insidious form, can exist just beneath the surface of everyday life. Maura Murray's disappearance serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities we all face, the precarious nature of existence. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes, despite our best efforts, some mysteries may never be solved. The questions remain, unanswered, echoing in the silence left behind. What happened to Maura Murray? Will we ever know? Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. Goodbye.